Hello, and welcome to the Passion Driven Pioneers interview series. I'm your host, John Channon, and today I'm joined by Steve Rogers, who is the founder of Think Different Lending. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, John, for the opportunity.
Yeah, would you like to just kick us off with a brief background as to who you are, what you do, and the business that you're in?
Okay. My name is Steve Rogers, and obviously I'm the president and founder of Think Different Lending, another business that we put together here probably 5 years ago. Uh, in one of my other businesses, we were finding that we were looking for financing. And even though we had very strong numbers, it was just one of those that we were finding the difficulty of finding lending partners and understanding what it entailed to truly get the bankers to say yes. And so actually kind of came up with the idea, started Think Different Lending. And really what we do is we work with companies to help them get ready to secure funding. We help them understand what they need to have in place to go talk to the bankers and the financial institutions to be able to have it go smoothly. It's kind of interesting. It's hard to find some business bankers out there that on that stuff. So it's been a fun opportunity.
So really, the business itself was born out of an opportunity within another business that you had.
Yep.
And
Yes.
in this case, it's really kind of, hey, we need to do a little pre-work before we go approach our commercial lender. Is that kind of?
Yes. Yes. It was interesting. I had gone back to the situation of I was looking to refinance some equipment, and I was working with a bank, and we had a good relationship, and we had just gotten a brand new person, a sales rep, and we were going through everything. And honestly, I'm not a big tax aspect or whatever. Enjoy paying taxes, so I take a lot through payroll, and I'm the only shareholder. So we were going through and going through, and we had a fairly substantial money in the bank, so more than enough collateral to cover what we were looking to do. And we were going through it, and we had somebody audit the bank audit us, and everything was great except for he was complaining that my retained earnings from the year before, which again we had actually gotten rid of some customers, was not as high as they wanted to do. And it was interesting that everything else looked great on his chart. Everything was green and positive and everything else. And my retained earnings was not there 4 times or whatever situation they were looking for. And so again, I literally had enough money in the bank, do whatever, other things, but we want to finance it. And he literally came back and was asking me about, well, my retained earnings was too low, this format was. So I remember I looked at him and I said, so let me get this straight. You want me to make more profit, so I have to take more money out of my pocket to pay taxes just so your number turns green. And he looked at me and goes, yep.
Kidding.
No, I'm not. So at that moment, I realized there was really a need for people to understand and help businesses get financing. I was explaining that nothing against the big guys or whatever, but we need people to start businesses. We need people to help get them started, because if not, we're all going to be working for, Amazon or Walmart. Not there's anything wrong with them, but we need to find that we have to have people start businesses, because that's what the country is made of.
So talk maybe just a little bit about your business model of Think Lending, right? What does that look like? Because you're offering obviously a service to folks, but is it
Yep.
like a subscription service, a
No,
pay-as-you-go
no,
service?
it's just a sort of a consulting concept. One of the things that we've done is I put together a group of people that not only have the accounting side and the finance side, but also the ability of helping out with the management side, the development side. Again, my other company is a plastics company, so part of it was always helping that entrepreneur being able to. It was originally going to be set out the ability of helping an entrepreneur secure funding to go build it, the new idea. I haven't done very good with that one, but I've helped a lot of other businesses get the financing and kind of found where it was. So to answer the question is that we can now look at the financial package of saying, okay, um, start off with somebody and say, what are you looking for? Okay, you need 50, if you're looking for $100,000 loan, okay, how do we figure out that you're going to have $130,000 worth of collateral, because the banks right now are looking for 130% the collateral aspect. So it's, again, and most people don't understand it. It starts from the, doing a personal financial statement, PFS, all the way to understanding, well, what do you have for assets? And people buying companies we've seen, we can look at their, obviously their equipment, their receivables, the purchasers, and sort of helping them realize exactly what they have, put it together. So when they submit it to a couple of different financial people, there's not a lot of arguments. Says, okay, here's your 130%, here's your business plan, here's the financials of the companies, here's your return, and just simply put it together for them. And it really works out really well. And our service doesn't just end there. We've also got the opportunity to help later on the issues of, I appreciate college. And again, I went to Moorhead State, or Minnesota, University of Minnesota Moorhead. But in accounting, cash flow is king. If you can't cash flow something, then you shouldn't do it, and so many, they're not, I love that they'll teach the concepts of it, but if you don't understand that, if you don't bring in enough money in cash flow, then it isn't worth it. It's the ability of watching expenses, and just helping with the financial knowledge to people to start businesses.
So talk to us a little bit about what it was like starting up another business when you already have a business and you're operating that and working that. How did that go? And by the way, I think this was started up then in 2020.
Yes.
Oh boy. Okay.
It was interesting. I really started it because I was frustrated, because I realized that, again, in the financial sector, there was, growing up in a family business, which was Anchor Plastics. We had always had relationship building, bankers and things like that. And unfortunately, everybody, unfortunately gets old and retires and then gets transferred. And we just sort of got passed around, and we didn't have that relationship with the banker that you could just call. And we understand that obviously after '08, a lot of things changed with the banking industry, and there's a lot more, I've got friends who own banks, and the answer is the amount of groups that, audit them and whatever. It's no fun to be in the banking business either. So it's that concept. But really what you find is that I started it because honestly, there was a need, because if I couldn't get what I wanted, and not that I'm anything special, but I realized how many other people were still struggling. We're still trying to find out how to do this, how to get started. I always go back to the same issue that I remember the, wrestling coach and football coach saying, how do you climb a mountain? Well, it's one step at a time. So you got to take your first step. And it says, okay, for any idea, saying, well, how are you going to pay for it? And it's the ability of putting together that personal financial statement, putting together, the financial statements for the banks, the whole purchasing package together. So you don't give a no opportunity to the bankers.
That's good. That's good. So, so talk about your new business and what are some of the things that you guys have to deal with to kind of remain innovative in your space, or what are some of the strategies you're using, or is it really not a lot of innovation going on and you're just really helping people navigate?
It's a little bit of everything. It's the ability of kind of looking outside the box. Again, from a financial aspect, there's not a lot of things you can do, and the aspects of changing things or innovativeness, but it's really looking at the big picture. I helped somebody who bought a company for $50,000, and she was a college student. So how do you figure out how to get, and it was a little creative, so for example, what did she have in assets? Well, it turned out that she had, a 401k that started back with the family, and then she had a little bit of this, and then, some bought. So it was really putting it, and then actually even had the point where, got down to 10,000, and it was, how do we come up with this? And working with the client saying, well, if it's only 10 grand, could somebody help co-sign or whatever? So to get to that point, that was really the key. It's just it's just educating people on what you need to have before you do it. There's nothing we do that's, I won't lie to you, is special. I mean, we just have some experience on saying, okay, if you put this package together and you say, okay, personal financial statements, here's how the company's financials go. Here's the profitability. Here's your return on, the EBIT aspect. Here's this. Here's your business plan. Put it together. Now you have the opportunity of showing the banking or the financial institutions that, hey, this can pay for itself. This will finance itself. This will cash flow. And in most cases, that's a good opportunity to show. And then on top of it, just some follow up to make sure that they're doing that. We're working again with another group that we will evaluate working with them and saying, they were renting a place and we looked at it and it was kind of those things that we said, gee, everything they could do, they could actually have it made cheaper for them. So it was the old make or buy situation and just helping with that financial knowledge.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate you sharing the example of the college student seeking 50,000 to get a business started because
Mm-hmm.
that's who we're targeting all this audience with. Um, Let me ask you about your future plans and goals that you have for this business.
To be totally honest with you, one of the struggles that I do have having two businesses is that somehow when I want to get started on one of them, the other one jumps up and everything else. So you don't always get a chance to put as much time into it. This one's really the one that, again, if you can do something that you love, and I love both businesses, but this is the one that's kind of, gives back. It's the one that we start talking about, from the concept of what we do, helping people, helping get the financing, and helping starting new businesses. What do I see in the future? An opportunity that I love. I've got a senior in high school right now, and it's great to see a generation and his group, understanding the trades are now back. We're now going to make things in this. We're not just going to be, on the computer on those things to do. So I think there's a great opportunity. I think there's a sort of a renaissance in the air right now that's going to come back that says we need people to make things. As you talk about, I'm 50 and I'm starting to feel a little old, and the ability of saying the concept of we need younger people because a lot of us are retiring, the average age of boomers. So there's a lot of businesses that are now for sale. There's now a lot of guys that are 65 that simply say, I'm done. And, I want to retire, and they don't know if the kids. So there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of business. I'm not really a big private equity guy myself. I like to see people owning business. I like to see people, starting businesses.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of folks who have started up their own businesses on this show, and it's been a lot of fun to learn about their journeys and some of the things that they've experienced. Now, I just this is a little more specific about your business,
Mm-hmm.
but are there certain partnerships that you have that you guys are working with? Because I think, you're trying to give back, and I think of, the Twin Cities Score organization, right? Are they
Mm-hmm.
folks you can network with, partner with? I'm just
You,
kind of
you
trying to
know,
see what the rest of that looks like.
Yeah, honestly, it's really, to be honest with you, it's just people that I've known or referrals to people I've got. Like all things in a network. And I always try to explain, especially young people, um, get off your phones, get out and join the networking groups, join groups. I always explain I'm not very smart, but I know a lot of really smart people. So that's why I'm successful. It's the ability of understanding that, again, having the relationships of knowing the people that you need to know or would like to know is you can't put a price on that. So, do we have a lot of relationships with banks? Yes. And it's basically what we look at saying, okay, for this amount of money, we would go to here for this here. I do work with another group that, again, is depending on what the situation is what the banks we sort of look at. And we've got lots of, and we're fortunate to have lots of relationships with some things that to do. So, and I think banks are getting hungrier again. The financial aspect with the interest rates going up, I know a lot of the money in the bank sort of dried up a little bit, but they're starting to make more notes and things like that. And it's especially hard now with interest rates, at 8 and 9%. It's that cash flow concept is really important because
Mhm.
if the margins aren't there, and how are you going to make it and everything else? So
No, that's great. So, knowing that this show is going to be directed towards people that are going to be maybe starting a business or in their first few years of business, do you have any final thoughts or words of advice you'd like to share with our audience today?
first of all, thank you for letting me be on here tonight or today. It's been a great opportunity. The first thing is that, like all things, before you get started, you really need to go back and start to, do your homework. And like I always say, start with a personal financial statement. If you don't know what that is, just go online and fill it out, or go to your bank. If you're going to start looking at business, look at 5 years of how they did. If you're going to buy a business and the guy won't give you 5 years of the numbers, then there's a little question. Understand that 130%. If you can come up with the ability of saying, for every dollar, the banks want $1.30 for collateral, and just some of those things to put together. It's not hard what we do. It's just what we do is we help people kind of, yeah, how do I phrase it? Quit overthinking it, bring it in, and then have a relationship for it. So it's really a great opportunity. And again, I want people, to start businesses. We need people to take over. There's a lot of opportunity right now. Again, when you're talking about the boomers are retiring, and we need people to start businesses, and a lot of them, that if you take a look at the M&A groups or whatever, like Sunbelt or some of the groups, there's a ton of businesses for sale, and it's a great opportunity. And so I hope the generation right now that's graduating those things takes advantage of that.
Yeah, and I think we need more entrepreneurs. The world needs more entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of the jobs are in the smaller businesses
Mm-hmm.
and the entrepreneurs. So, listen, thank you so much for your time today, Steve.
Yes, thank you. If you have any questions, it's just think different at www.thinkdifferentlending.com, and if we can help, let us know.
That's great. And to everyone watching, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.